chains, on bars, shackled, in the world are locked up here in the land of the free.
Jim Crow. You don't have the Jim Crow movement without the birth of a nation. And you don't have the birth of a nation type ideology without slavery.
This is done. It has gone behind the curtain and it's told a history from the beginning till now, and it's just before the election. And so
I was actually raised by my grandmother, because my mother was incarcerated at the age of 4, when I was 4, for armed robbery. And she was released when I was about 12 years old. And I remember, vividly remember just the barriers that she had to navigate when she got out of prison. I remember the difficulty of going to see her, because often, we talk a lot about prisoners and people who are incarcerated. What we don't talk about are the families.
There's no other way to describe it, but legally lynched. Legally lynched. Now you go and you explain to adult individuals what took place and they laugh. Well, spending 28 years of my life inside of a prison and really, literally, had to beg like a dog to get out of the prison system, our own people didn't even have a clue what to do to help me. And, my story has been nationally. I had to go to Caucasian people to help me, and I had to go to a prominent professor, Bernardine Durham and Bill Ayers. And, if it was not for them, I would be just someone stuck inside of a prison system.
In the early 1900s, when you had Irish, Italian, different European ethnic groups here, there was a lot of violence because of the poverty, right? But the way they approached it, and like you brought up, right, they approached it as a social service issue, a health issue, right? So they said, these people have economic issues, these people have social conditions, right? They blame the environment, and therefore they created infrastructure to directly deal with that, right? But as soon as we were forced out of the South, right, we call it the Great Migration, but it isn't that. Like the movie demonstrated, right, we were forced to leave the South. We were threatened, running for our lives to the North, assuming there was opportunity here. But once we were sort of corralled into these ghettos, right, we didn't get the same sort of narrative. They immediately readjusted the language and made this whole conversation around us being criminal, right? And that, again, fed back into the prison industrial complex.
Or criminalized, or really even enforced, is part of the issue why we say this is an institutionalized problem. Black people are not the only ones who are having social ills, using drugs, doing anything like this, getting to fight. This is stuff that's happening ubiquitously, and what makes me so frustrated is, when I see a film like this, it's like, do people know that other people are getting into this sort of nonsense? I mean, do people realize if you put the worst things you ever done in your life on a sheet of paper and put it in front of an employer, you wouldn't get hired either? But until it starts happening to you, it's easy to disassociate yourself from it, right? There's, that's what they're dealing with, not recognizing that, but for the grace of God, they'll go, I've committed crimes too, Now, I've been arrested in 3 different states, so my light skin doesn't give me much privilege, but that being said, I do have white friends who have done use drugs all the time, never with any fear of being caught. Never, not before legalization, decriminalization, and if they get stopped, they get that indignant Dave Chappelle, I didn't know I was supposed to do that, or why are you stopping me and getting loud? And you don't see any videos of them on YouTube or Facebook of them getting beat up or mistreated. But I've had a police officer pull his gun on me on a traffic stop. And I look as corny as they get. So clearly, they don't see anything but the color. And I think that's a problem. That's something.
Abolitionists. So one of the things we really talk about is defunding the police, defunding these systems of harm, and reinvesting those resources back into our communities, right? The brother uplifted the closing of the 50 schools, right? We had 10 mental health clinics closed as well. Commercial businesses are divested from in our communities, right? So we have to also engage around how we think about power and our power in numbers and our power in our voice and what we can do to reframe conversations, but also hold people accountable and systems accountable, and at the same time challenge those systems while trying to deconstruct them and then build models. One piece that we have is imagination and creativity. right? And we have to reimagine ourselves, we have to reimagine the world, we have to reimagine how we interact and engage our humanity. And that can be somewhat of the challenge for a lot of people because, you know, we've been sort of indoctrinated to just believe that these are the parameters and the only paradigm in which we can kind of play in, right? But that's not the case. You know, it's a limitless sort of situation, but we just have to have that collective imagination. And then for us, right, again, history, roots, heritage, it's a very powerful piece. Just getting back to principles, right? I'm not talking about anything new or creative, right? If I want to think about an egalitarian world, if I want to think about systems that are more just.
The first point is to support agency over advocacy. I think far too often we expect other people to speak, particularly for people who are formerly incarcerated. I think that often those who are closest to the problem are in the best position to solve that problem. So just support more agency, more people from communities kind of solving their issues and their problems. Second, artist therapy. That's basically our mission at Donda's House. And so if you want to support arts-based organizations, on the outside it looks like it's really fun and entertaining, and it is, but there's a lot of therapeutic work that happens kind of underneath. And then finally, I think entrepreneurship is key. In my family's journey, and then a lot of the friends and family members that we have who are formerly incarcerated, they can't get hired. They're not able to find employment. So we have to spend more time teaching them how to be entrepreneurial so that they can earn an income to support